You're saying, why won't the scale move? You're asking some type of scale related question like, okay, I need the scale to go down. Why won't the scale move? Instead, you should be asking, how do I maximize fat loss? Focusing on the scale means you're focusing on weight loss, and weight means you could be losing anything. You could cut your hair and lose weight. So you're not just focusing on the scale moving, because that means that anything could be, you could be losing muscle mass, you could be losing bone mass, you could be losing internal organ mass, which likely you are if you're on diets that are only focused on scale weight, and especially if they're focusing on getting the scale to move fast, which goes back to number one. So if you're choosing super fast weight loss and you're trying to only focus on getting the scale to go down, you may be focusing on the wrong thing. So yes, so ask yourself, how can you maximize fat loss? Remember, the goal is to lose fat while maintaining as much muscle mass as possible, which if you're doing that properly, the scale shouldn't move drastically. It may still inch down, but it will not necessarily like drop drastically over and over and over again. And when it is doing that, then that means that you're losing precious muscle mass, which means that your metabolism is going down. So you have to remember that muscle equals metabolism. So that is a weight that you actually want to keep. And when you're in the very beginning of your journey, if you're optimizing fat loss and you're like starting to lift weights and you're not so focused on just losing weight really quickly, but on a lifestyle that's going to maintain the weight loss, then that means that you could sit for a year or more at the exact same weight but look completely different at the end of that year. And that's because you will be slowly losing fat and gaining muscle. And as that kind of goes back and forth, what's happening is because muscle has weight, the scale seems to just sit still, but your body composition is changing. You cannot underestimate those changes. A lot of times people will say like, oh, I'm only losing inches. Your clothing size is based on inches. The way that you look is based on your body fat percentage and how much muscle mass you have. And the rate at which you can lose fat is based on how much muscle mass you have. If you keep chipping away at that muscle mass, it's only going to get harder and harder and harder to lose not only the weight, but the fat. So you're gaining back fat every time you go through the huge drop in weight, and then it shoots back up and you gain back fat, but you've lost your muscle mass, which means that now you not only weigh more than you used to, but you also have more fat than you used to. And which if you have more fat and less muscle, that means even though you bounce maybe back up to the exact same weight that you were, your body now requires less calories to maintain at that weight than if you had just stayed there the whole time and never dieted. So it's very, very important to keep as much muscle mass as possible, because that's what's going to allow you to continue to eat a sufficient amount. Because the more muscle you lose, the harder it is for your body to just maintain itself, because that's what's going to keep the metabolism going.